Hey guys, so this kind of just comes from my response to an email that I got earlier today. So all of us students get email updates from the American Osteopathic Association, and the president of the AOA reached out and told us about um, a article that was pretty inflammatory about everything that's going on with Larry Nassar, and I actually read that article, and there was some really uninformed stuff in there. Whoever had written this article, it was an op-ed, so it was an opinion piece, but this person did not do their homework at all. It was, in my opinion, very poorly written. It was very poor journalism, and it was almost tabloid journalism, in my opinion, because there was very little research conducted. There were no reliable sources conferred with. No professional opinions were sought. This person just kind of went out on a limb and slandered the entire osteopathic profession. And as a student of osteopathic medicine, that really irritated me. I think that it's incredibly immature of a person to take something that they don't know anything about and to just bash it. There's no thought to it, there's no reason for it. It's just someone senselessly slandering. And that's what I consider this article to be. I don't consider it to be an opinion article. I consider it to be slanderous. Because if this woman who wrote the article, her name was Virginia Heffernan, if she had done her homework, she went out on a limb and said all these things about some statements made by the writings of A.T. Still, the basically founder and father of osteopathy, and osteopathy morphed into osteopathic medicine. And he wrote down some ideas, and most of these things were like anecdotal stories and things like that. And she takes a fragment of one of those stories, takes it completely out of context, and uses it to justify the idea that osteopathic, the osteopathic field in general, is intrinsically inclined, or predisposed rather, to violence and child abuse. And that was just, it's a ludicrous statement to begin with, and it's infuriating to me because everything that happened with Larry Nassar is heinous. It's unforgivable, it's disgusting, it's monstrous. And I don't disagree with that. The headline of the article was Larry Nassar was not a doctor, and I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think that any person who claims to be a doctor in order to further their own agenda and to use it as a thinly veiled excuse to perform heinous acts, that's not a doctor. Doctors answer a higher calling to help people, to be good people, to be model citizens. And that is not Larry Nassar. He is not a doctor. And I agree with that assessment, I agree with that headline. But what I don't agree with is her painting with a broad brush and claiming that, this man's a monster, but his profession in general, and the ideals of the profession in general are just like out of whack, and taking an anecdotal piece of a fragment and just to kind of explain, the article, by the way, is linked in the description of this video if you guys want to read it so that you can see what I'm talking about. I encourage that because, her opinion was expressed in this article. I don't think it was an opinion, I think it was slander, but this is my counter opinion to her opinion, so to speak, and I think that you will get more out of my thoughts if you read the original article as well. But past that tangent, it talks about in a there's a portion of A.T. Still's writings and journals where he talks about shaking a child to help him get past an acute illness. Now, even as a first-year osteopathic student, I can reasonably assume that he's likely getting at the idea of, some of these pumps that we've learned about that help open up, your circulation and your lymphatic flow, which helps your body be more efficient when it comes to clearing acute illness. And these principles are one of the reasons why we get taught over and over again. DOs were more effective than their allopathic counterparts during the influenza epidemic in 1918 because we did these basic principles. We helped people improve their lymphatic flow and circulation, help them cycle their body, and help their body clear it. And I thought that was really cool. That was a really cool fact. And then this gets turned on its back and turned around and is used against us because someone who's uninformed, who didn't ask a DO, who didn't ask anyone who's familiar with the osteopathic profession what was meant by that, she just assumes that this shaking, which was how he described it in circa 1890 something, or the early 1900s, all of this language was from ages ago, and she takes this as violently shaking a child to try to make him better. And that's just not true. I mean, she didn't confer with anyone who had an informed opinion about that. Now, there are some valid pieces of information kind of nestled into this article. She talks about how in old osteopathic literature there were some sensitive exams that Dr. Nassar used, or former Dr. Nassar used, to justify his heinous acts, and those were things in sensitive areas that would not be performed by pretty much anyone these days. I mean, we as students are taught when you're working with a female patient, it is in order to protect ourselves, ask them to put their hands over their chest when you're doing things in that area to make sure that you're not touching things that you shouldn't be. Certain things like this, we are taught to we're taught to work on patient comfort. That's one of our biggest priorities, is making sure that the patient is comfortable, making sure that we aren't violating that trust. And it's really important to me that we don't violate that. And it's just so crazy to think that someone could publish an inflammatory article like this without checking with a DO to see, hey, what are the techniques performed these days? She's going off of literature from 1900, and in that same ballpark era, our allopathic counterparts were prescribing cocaine, heroin, arsenic, in order to actually legitimately try to cure disease. And as science progresses, we realize, oh, cocaine's bad, arsenic's bad, heroin's bad, and we don't prescribe them anymore. By that same token, as we get a better understanding of osteopathic medicine, certain techniques phase out, other techniques phase in, we understand things a little bit better, we learn how to do things more effectively, and things change. That's the nature of science. But clearly this woman who wrote this article, Virginia Heffernan, did not have a grasp of how science works. And she didn't ask somebody to talk about the modern approaches to osteopathic techniques in clinical practice and their applications to anything. And I think that someone who has access to a huge publication like the LA Times, not to mention her editors who allowed this to be published without asking, hey, did you do any of homework on this, or is this just, your own spewing ramblings? I get that it's an opinion piece, so she's able to say what she thinks, but that doesn't mean she should be able to slander an entire profession with no, real evidence to back it up. So I just wanted to post my frustrations and reiterate that, no matter what you might see in the media, do your homework and see what the data says. Whether that's with climate change or, I don't know, climate change is a very current example, but go based on the data, because data and unbiased studies are your best source of information, because that's how you're able to figure out what people have found in an environment that's tries to control all of the other crap on the outside. And that's what your opinions, in my opinion, should be based on. I think they should be based on empirical data and scientific fact. And I think that that's a safe way to go. But above all else, just stay vigilant, you know? I mean, take time to notice that that is an opinion piece and that she didn't have to do her homework because it's just her thoughts. This isn't fact what she's writing. And that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to reiterate is what she's writing is not fact. And things are in fact very different in osteopathic school than what she claimed. So that's all I really have to say right now, guys. That just really irked me. So feel free to read my thoughts that I posted on Facebook in the description. Check out the article. And until next time, stay well, be well, and feel free to comment, like, subscribe. If you have ideas for future videos especially, please, please, please comment, and I will get to work on those in the near future. So take care. Have a good night, guys.